In 1981, I was a 20-year-old performing professional magician. And it was in this capacity I was asked to perform a magic show for an elderly community in the little town of Yucaipa, California, for a Christmas show. So I'm performing this show, and during that show, a little 85-year-old woman eagerly is raising her hand, pick me, just like a little kid would normally do. You know? So I worked this woman into my act. I brought her up on stage for one of my tricks, and I asked her name, and she says, "Young man, my name is Clara Louise Wassum, and the last time I ever helped out a magician, it was for the great Houdini." Well, at that point I'm thinking, this is going to be a tough act to follow, you know, with this. But I'm also wondering, is this woman, you know, kind of off a rocker, or is this true, or what, you know? And then she carries on, she says, by the way, I was also the assistant for the best magician of all time, and that was my dad, the American professor, Professor Harry Cooke. And at this point, she basically took over my magic show. My show was done, as myself and the entire audience fell spellbound to this woman. And she began talking about her dad, who was a magician, who was a whole generation prior to Houdini, who in fact had been a mentor to Houdini, which really was shocking. But she said, that's not the biggest story, Mark. She said, the biggest story is my dad served for the Union and fought in the Civil War. Now I gotta stop for a second. She said her dad, not her grandpa, not her great-grandpa, her dad had fought in the Civil War and was appointed a special Lincoln Scout by Abraham Lincoln himself. Now I'm really beginning to wonder about this woman. Well, this is the tall tale or the greatest story I've ever heard. She gave me most of the stuff outright. Now she kept the diary. She only lent me the diary to be transcribed and be turned into a report in those days for Reader's Digest, which I attempted, but Reader's Digest kicked it back because at 20 years old I wasn't a writer. But anyhow, but she did make me promise that someday, her only request is she'd give me the scrapbook and the lock and several other things, but she made me promise that I would one day tell her dad's story. And that's why I wrote the book Lincoln Scout. And thankfully this museum, the Quinta Museum, is doing this great display on her dad's story. It's 40 years after Clara has passed away, but I do hope that Clara is looking down and appreciates this great display about her dad.